I got my first trail camera when I was 10 years old. It took 8 D-cell batteries and had a roll of film, and I set it up on a dead cow to see what would come in on it. I was so excited to take that roll of film to town, get them developed, and when I got my photos back, it was mostly just blurry photos of ravens and magpies, but in one of them, in the dark, I could see all these eyes circling this cow off in the distance, just glowing in this big bright flash of this giant, awkward camera. But I was so excited by that I just knew that I'd be running game cameras forever. And they've changed so much since then. The best of the cameras now are made by Tacticam. So these reveal cell cameras will work in places that have basically no cell service at all. So I can get cell service on the camera when I can't get it on my phone. They have live view. They've got active GPS. So if a bear packs my camera off, I can find it again. Or if I forget about it, definitely have done that. I can change all of the features through the app on my phone. The photos and videos just get sent to me. And ultimately, this makes me a better hunting guide because I can monitor a really wide area without going in there and disturbing the wildlife in that area, right? I'm just getting the intel back and making decisions based off of what I'm seeing on those cameras. If you want to learn more about Reveal, go to www.tacticam.com and check out their newest camera. That's the Ultra. That's the one that I'm using right now. And it's, simply put, the easiest and best trail camera that I've ever used. So go check it out. These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast.
Nothing.
No sweet tea? No sweet tea?
I had to cut that out a long time ago.
Okay.
So, growing up in the South, sweet tea was like in our bottles, you know? And so as a baby, and, but I used to drink a gallon of sweet tea every day. And I grew up in construction and ate like crap and drank a gallon of sweet tea every day.
That's just how folks roll in the South. I mean, it's like, that's a cultural thing to do.
It is.
Yeah.
And I went to a meat and three every day, and, took my guys there, and we had, fried pork chops, fried chicken and country fried steak and gravy and potatoes and gallons of sweet tea every day at lunch. And so, like when I was in high school, when I was in 10th grade, I was like boxing at like 145, somewhere in that range. And when I graduated high school, I was at about 165.
Yeah. And
then,
was this like Golden Gloves or
Golden Gloves? Yeah. So, it was really cool down there. We had that, in our YMCA system down there, as well as the Boys Club system down there. But then when I graduated high school, I didn't do any of that anymore, but I was 165, and then I went in, once I got out of school and got into the construction field, before I knew it, at 23 years old, I was 205.
Sweet tea.
It was sweet tea, dude.
Fried pork chops, yeah.
Yeah.
When I moved to North Carolina, I was seeing all these foods that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And coming from, my family, we're raising and growing food, but there's also a really big old culinary tradition in my family. So I wanted to know what these foods were and how to cook them. And I would ask local folks, and inevitably they would lean in and lower their voice like they're telling me a secret, and they'd go, chop it up and fry it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Crisco.
Yeah, you bet. Or peanut oil.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Peanut oil. Yeah, for sure. If you're going to pan fry, it's Crisco. If you're going to deep fry, it's peanut oil.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no in between.
But sweet tea and fried foods aside.
Yeah.
I understand that you've killed over 100 Pope and young whitetail bucks.
I don't know who told you that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's whitetails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, not really.
Is it?
No, I don't think so, because...
Well, look, there's folks out here listening to this right now.
Yeah.
That would be their dream to find one of them, and they're working hard to get it. So it is an incredible thing.
Well, Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you got to also realize, like, where I grew up, we had a 120-day season.
Yeah.
For the majority of my life, we could kill a whitetail buck and a doe a day.
Yeah.
So I could kill 120 bucks a year.
You had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and back then, leases weren't the big thing, and like our neighbors would let us hunt. There were soybeans everywhere back then. Now there's pine trees. So, but back then it was pretty easy to get, 130, 140 inch deer in front of you, and you had a lot of opportunities. And then very early on, I was really lucky and had a friend who had a family place in the Midwest, and they didn't deer hunt. It was a big place. They just quail hunted. And so I had that place to myself for years. And you could kill 2 bucks over the counter and with archery equipment in Oklahoma every year. So, and then they had another place right across the line in Kansas. So I could go out there for 2 weeks and kill 3 really nice whitetails. So it wasn't that great of an accomplishment considering the opportunity that I had.
I still think it's impressive.
Well, I appreciate it, but
today we're sitting at the headquarters of Day 6 Gear with Mr. Bryan Broderick, and we are going to get into the weeds on archery tackle.
All right.
And so I'm going to give everybody fair warning that if this is not your thing, I don't want to waste any more of your time. But if you're interested in the components of arrows, then we're really going to get into it. Now, I just met Bryan this morning. I drove across Wyoming to get here today. I have no affiliation with this company, and as always, I'm going to ask questions, and I never pull punches on anything.
Sure.
Something that I noticed right away about your broadheads is the level of detail that you're putting into building them. But foremost, the shape that you're using is a shape that's consistent with stone projectile points all over the world that had 60,000 years of research put into those designs.
Yep.
And I'm curious why, in a world where very few broadhead manufacturers decided to use that shape, why did you decide to?
Well, it was basically it was just a culmination of all my favorite broadheads over about 30 years. And I always kept coming back to that convex or Maasai shape. And there's a reason that shape and that geometry has been tried and true.
What is the reason?
Well, anything you make radiused versus straight is stronger. That's why bridges are arched and barrels are round. If it wasn't, a 55-gallon drum would be a 55-gallon box. So once you start putting radiuses into things, the structural integrity doesn't just double. Sometimes it's 4 and 5x. You can look at stone arches that are, in Europe that are centuries old.
Right.
That's the last thing standing when everything else has fallen. So it's very, very durable. But the other thing that it does is it provides the blade angle and durability combination that you're looking for. When you're building a broadhead, you're trying to pour 10 gallons in a 5-gallon bucket, and something has to spill over. Like you could make something bomb-proof, but you wouldn't be able to make it light enough. But if you want to make something light, it's not going to be durable. So it's just always this compromise, and you're trying to find that perfect blend. And so what that shape does is it provides a very durable tip at the front. And then as it radiuses around, it starts to get to that very slight, mild blade angle, so where your blade is slicing, not chopping. And that's where 90% of the broadheads fail, in my mind, in the industry right now, is they're all sticking straight out in some shape, form, or fashion, and they're chopping and not slicing. And you know what a blade is designed to do: slice.
Well, a broadhead has to do a huge number of things. I think that what we ask of a broadhead is tremendous. And I've talked about this before, but I'll do it again. In the military, in any operation, you have a main effort and supporting efforts. And that main effort might be like, let's take tanks, because that's what I know the best. So tank platoon 1 is going to be the main effort. They're going to be the ones who are seizing the objective, maneuvering on it, and capturing it. You might have tank platoons 2 and 3 who are going to be supporting efforts, and they might be providing an outer cordon so that nobody else can get into that area. They might be providing suppressive fire so that whatever the objective is held down. The thing that I'm trying to get at here is, in any aspect of a challenge, you're going to have lots of supporting efforts that lead towards one main effort. In an archery hunt, you've got boots that are going to provide traction and maybe some thermal qualities and protect your feet from the ground. You've got clothing that's going to protect your body and help you thermal regulate and maybe hide you a little bit. You've got a pack that's going to carry all the extra stuff that you need. You've got a bow with all of its components, right? You've got a sight so that you know where the arrow is going to go. You've got strings and cables that are going to help launch that thing. You've got, your rangefinder and your release and your rest. All these things are driving so that you can get an arrow flying in the air towards an animal. But that arrow is just the delivery mechanism for the broadhead. Every single component of an archery hunt, everything that you've purchased, everything that you've trained with, is all a supporting effort to get that broadhead inside the vitals of an animal.
Yep.
And that broadhead has to fly straight while it's spinning with blades sticking out, do so quietly. Then it needs to hit muddy, coarse hair, tough skin, go through muscle that is twitching rapidly and trying to arrest its forward progress, hit a rib bone or some other bone, and now it has to be sharp enough that it's going to cut tiny capillaries inside lungs and coarse rubbery arteries and veins, and then go all the way through that animal and do the same thing again on the other side. It is a huge ask of a piece of metal that, weighs the same as a handful of Post-it notes.
That's right.
It's a crazy thing to ask of anything. And when we look at the materials that historically have been available, these are like volcanic glass and chert and things like that.
Obsidian and yep.
But now we have really cool CNC machines and lathes and lasers. Like, this is a really techy environment where you're looking at the smallest details. So starting from full draw, you have components of everything between that string and the animal that is going to help deliver this broadhead. Let's start at the knock and work our way forwards.
It's funny you say start at the knock, because that's the thing that gets overlooked
so much.
It's like such a secondary thought.
And people never replace them.
No, and man, the knock is the most important thing on the arrow. And broadhead aside.
And it's an inexpensive piece of plastic that's taken a huge amount of force over and over again. And people will have arrows that start to shoot like crap, and they won't even think about replacing the knock.
No, because the knocks, they're so important. So number one, you want to shoot the smallest knock that you can possibly get and still maintain structural integrity.
Why?
Well, string pinch. So everybody has a D-loop, right? Mm-hmm. And they have these big monster knots on top and bottom.
Yeah.
Well, when that string angle comes, when it comes all the way to the back and at full draw, it's pinching top and bottom on that knock. Mm-hmm. And so you want to have the least amount of surface area there to engage with those D-loop knots. Now, everybody should take, if they have one takeaway from this, you should have very small knock points tied inside your D-loop.
Just with some serving?
Just with serving to separate the D-loop from contact with the knock. Because what you're trying to do is eliminate the surface area contact between those two. Because what happens is you can shoot in your yard all you want and shoot great. But when you're on the mountain and you've got 1 foot a foot higher than the other, or you're leaning around a tree, you're going to torque that string. You're going to induce torque in everything, your grip hand, all of that. And so that's where the knock pinch really starts to show its face. So if you're eliminating all that surface contact, I mean, you're ahead of the game right there. And so smallest nock you can shoot, but still maintain durability. So the overall length of that nock is so important. Everybody makes their nocks too damn long. Oh, can I cuss on this?
You can. Just know that my grandma listens to these.
Okay, all right. I'll back her down then. So okay. I'm not a cusser, but it slips when I talk about this stuff. So
you're good.
Yeah. So sorry, Grandma. So they make them too long, and the problem is that as those things shoot over time, you've got that lever that's bending because it's plastic, and it's gonna work harden and work soften as it's being shot. So you want the shortest one you can get. We do not sell lighted nocks for a reason. We try to tell our customers, don't shoot lighted nocks. They're super cool. They look great on film. But when you take the nock and then you have to put a lighting apparatus inside of it, you don't have much material left around that apparatus to be consistent, number one. So it reacts the same every time the energy from the bow is applied to that. And it's not durable because you've just taken half the material away. And you're basically encapsulating this apparatus. So they're very, very prone to failure.
And the flanges are crazy long. So you need a longer D-loop. And if you press forward accidentally with your release while you're waiting to come to full draw, you can inadvertently push that arrow so that it's no longer knocked on the string, but it will come to full draw and then
fall off.
It'll either fall off or when you shoot, your bow's going to explode and you're not going to know what happened.
Yeah, it'll dry fire.
And you're putting weight on the wrong end of the arrow.
Well, yes and no. So there is benefit to weight on the back.
What is the benefit?
Okay, so as you add weight to the front of the arrow, you're weakening the spine.
Yes.
Common sense stuff. But when you actually add weight in the back, it actually offsets that a little bit. Okay. So let's say that you're right on the line and you're between a 350 and a 300 spine arrow. Well, if you put like a wrap and forefletch on the back, well, you've just added 10 grains in a wrap and then 36 grains in 4 vanes. So you've added, 46 grains to the back. That's going to help offset, if you're trying to shoot like a heavier point weight up front and all that, which leads us into a very popular topic, which is FOC. Mm-hmm. FOC means nothing.
Weight forward of center.
Forward of center.
Yes.
Everyone on the internet obsesses over their percentage of FOC for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. FOC's been around since the 80s when Ashby first came out with his studies. And his results were accurate. His cause and effect was wrong. So, in my opinion. But FOC became a topic at that point, and then people realized very quickly it didn't matter, and people moved away from it. None of this stuff is new.
We love things that we can apply a number to.
That's exactly right. Charts, graphs, numbers, percentages. And to qualify that a little bit, FOC would matter if you could change it in increments of 20 and 30% at a time. If you could build an 80% FOC arrow that would fly perfect and perform, dude, you'd have it licked. Mm-hmm. It's just the restraints of what we're dealing with as far as materials and whatever. You can't do that.
And overall weight, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to make a 2,000 grain arrow, you might be able to do it. Maybe.
That's right. Yeah. But if you could build a 500 grain arrow that was 80% FOC, you'd own it.
Right.
Right now, it's not a possibility. So anyway, to that end, what's happened is that I call it microdosing FOC now, where guys are like, man, I really want to get my FOC from 10 to 12%. And I want to go, hey, bud, you can't measure the difference between 10 and 20%. So why are you worrying about 2%? And so guys will actually get the wrong spine arrow or increase point weight to weaken their spine and not get proper flex on their arrow and not have consistent arrow flight to obtain a certain percentage FOC. They're going backwards. So if you ask Levi Morgan, which I would consider one of the greatest archers that's ever lived. And I've been around the sun quite a few times. I mean, and seen a lot of great shooters. He's as good as they've ever come. And if you asked him what his FOC is, his answer is, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And
that's my answer as well.
Yeah. And if you ask any of the top shooters out there what their FOC is, they give you the same answer. I have no idea.
It's more than 0.
It's more than 0.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And I would say that is important, right? You wouldn't want to have more weight on the back end of the arrow than you would on the front. That would be a problem.
Yeah. But my point is that the difference between 10% and 12% is not measurable. So it's more
not measurable as it pertains to the animal.
To the animal, to a human shooter.
Right.
So you're not going to be able to see flight characteristics difference. You're not going to be able to see penetration difference. That's not measurable. Mm-hmm. And when you have a bow, which is your source of energy, that is not repeatable shot to shot within 1 or 2 feet per second, you're basically obsessing over a percentage that doesn't matter anyway because it's not repeatable.
Yeah, and it's not the thing that's going to make the difference.
No.
Do you find that putting a wrap on an arrow increases the spine? The stiffness of the spine?
It would, but in such a small percentage, you wouldn't be able to measure it.
Okay.
But if you added a wrap and vanes and a lighted knock and you ended up changing the back of that arrow 25, 30 grains, 40 grains, something like that, it would definitely stiffen it a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of this is not measurable, though, with a human shooter because of, number one, the human factor, number two, the bow repeatability factor.
Well, let's leave this behind and move into the things that do matter.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, I think it's important for people to know, though, that they don't need to obsess over those things because they're taking their system backwards trying to attain something that doesn't matter.
Right.
So
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
And that's a shift for me.
Yeah.
Like you convinced me here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the other thing is that, so what does matter? That's a arrow spine, proper flex, and flexing the same every time. That's the key. It's repeatability is what you're looking for.
Is there a relationship between consistent flex and arrow straightness?
No.
Okay.
No. So what I would say is that when you're looking at arrow straightness, you basically have 3 categories: 6 thou, 3 thou, 1 thou. 6 thou are basically culls. They're basically arrows that it didn't work.
And if we're talking about 6/1000ths of an inch, that doesn't sound like much.
It's not, but you got to realize it's plus or minus.
Okay.
So it's both ways.
Okay.
So then it's a 6 thou plus or minus is, if you think about it, the total delta there is like 12.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, which is still not a lot.
Right. That still isn't going to show up on my tape measure.
No.
But does it matter to an arrow on the bow or in flight?
So here's something probably that no one's ever heard. So your arrow straightness is an average over 28 inches. Okay. So what happens is you may have a perfectly straight arrow that's dead nuts all the way to the last 2 inches, and then it may be wonky at the point end, but it could still average 3 thou. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how arrows are packaged and sold.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And so what happens is when you have, like, if it was 10 or 12 thou out at the end where you're putting a broadhead, which is more steerage or fins
right
on the front.
Yeah, wings.
Yeah. And it's coming out with the paradox. And so it's just, everything's wonky. It's just going to create this very volatile wobble all the way down.
Explain paradox for those who don't know.
So paradox is basically just the arrow flexing as it comes through the bow, and it's the process of recovery. So it basically will look like an arc when it comes out, and it'll go back and forth based on the spine or where the spine is located. So why arrow spine is so important is that the proper amount of flex for the amount of energy that's being delivered to that arrow, how it's going to react and how it's going to recover is what you're looking for, that perfect balance. If it's too stiff, it'll push off to the side and it won't recover. It'll plane very quickly.
Is this something that can be as simple as a guy or gal going to your website and looking at the grain weight of the broadhead they want to shoot and then looking at your chart for what spine their arrow should be?
Yeah, so we tried to simplify it further than that. We always had the arrow spine chart that every arrow company's ever had, but we have an arrow calculator now. So you can plug in your draw weight, draw length, your point weight, and it's going to spit out the arrow that you want.
Easy button.
Easy button.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did it out of laziness for me because I was spending all day on the phone trying to figure out arrow setups for everybody, which I love. I like helping people, but the problem was I couldn't get anything done. Mm-hmm. And so we had to find a way to basically have a self-service type of deal.
Automate.
At least let them have a good setup or good starting point. So, but what's important is that the industry standard for arrow spine tolerance is 25 thou. So if you go buy brand X arrow, dozen 300s, they have a spine tolerance which is industry accepted of 25 thou. So it could be 312 to 287. So it's not going to, those dozen arrows are not going to flex the same.
And that is measured by hanging a weight off of an arrow and seeing how far it deflects, or how do they do that?
Yes. So you span an arrow at 28 inches. You hang a 1.94 pound weight in the middle, and then it has a gauge on it, and it tells you how much in thousandths of an inch that arrow deflects with that 1.94 pounds.
1.94. How did that happen?
It was probably supposed to be 2, and whoever did it probably muffed it up and it ended up 1.94, and they just rolled with it. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
I have
that's
no
what
idea.
it is.
That's what it is.
Okay.
So, but anyway, that's what that is. And so the way we manufacture arrows, we do two things different. Well, we do a lot of things different, but one of the primary things we do differently is that we have a secondary process, which is we grind the outside of the arrows to make sure that the wall thickness is identical all the way around. So if you think about how an arrow is made, it's made like a paper towel roll. So the carbon tube is perfect on the center, and then as you wrap the paper towels around, it gets out of round. It's not perfectly round. The only thing that's perfectly round is the center part of it, right?
Okay.
So
because it's getting wrapped around a mandrel.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then here you have, let's say you have 100 layers there where that ends, but you only have 99 there.
Yeah, right.
So at 12 you have 100, at 99 at 6 you have 99. So
which is why knock tuning can help sometimes.
Knock tuning helps for arrows that have a stiff and a weak side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not every arrow does?
No.
Yeah.
So ours do not, because we have that secondary process.
Okay.
So what we're trying to accomplish is if you get 300 spine arrows, they're within 295 to 305, not 287 to 312, which is industry standard. And all the way around the clock on that spine, there's not a stiff and a weak side.
Do you sell arrows that are 0.003 straightness?
We do. And here's the thing. I would say this, there's not really very many shooters that can discern the difference between 01 and 03s. Mm-hmm. If I had one message I could tell my customers, it's save $20 and buy 03 arrows. Because a human cannot shoot to that level to where they're going to know that difference. And anybody that has an arrow, like the most common draw is 28, 29 inches, something like that. So most people's arrows are 29, 28, 27. If your arrow's that short, 100% buy a 3 thou straightness arrow, because where you see the run out on most arrows is in the last 2 inches on each end. So if you cut 2 inches off each end for a 28 inch arrow, it's already a 1 thou again.
That's fascinating.
Because you've pulled the end, because you got to realize when they're trying to get them off those mandrels,
right,
that's where they bend.
Yep.
Because they can't, it's not perfectly straight when it comes off.
And they're probably still hot when they're pulling them off.
Somewhat, yeah. But yeah, that's the concept behind it. So, no reason to buy 1 thou straightness arrows. Now, I've said this a million times. Everybody buys 1 thou straightness arrows, even if they're 25 inches long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we want every advantage we can get, and if it's something that we can place a number on, then
that's right.
It's really alluring. I would go so far as to make a bold statement here.
Okay.
Because I think that there are shooters out there that I believe benefit from that maximum straightness. I would say that all of those shooters who can actually benefit from it are getting their arrows for free.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, probably so. And the thing is that, and most of those guys are competition guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. I referenced Levi Morgan earlier, just because there's nobody even close to accomplishing what he has with a bow from a competition level. And I've had the opportunity to hunt with him too, and he's an incredible hunter as well. But
is he a nice guy?
Very nice guy.
That's important.
Yeah, super nice guy. I really enjoyed, the time I got to spend with him. So anyway, and always like super generous with his time, and he'll never shoot day 6 stuff. I mean, he's going to be with a whale company. He's a big guy. So, but what I would say is
that's too bad.
Huh?
That's too bad.
Well, we would never be able to, we're not in that same world. He's a competition guy. We're never going to make competition arrows. We're a hunting company. So it's 2 different worlds,
I think that distinction is really important, because I compete in all kinds of shooting things, right? And I have for decades. But I have never lost sight of what the purpose of a projectile firing piece of equipment is.
Competition is practice for hunting in my mind.
And they get very far separated oftentimes.
They do.
And in a previous episode, I talked about the difference between rodeo cowboys and cowboys.
Yeah.
They're very different things.
They are.
And I'm not trying to take anything from either one. I do think that there's things that hunters can occasionally take from competitive shooters.
Yeah.
But it's not everything. And I also think that there's things that competitive shooters can take from hunters.
Yeah.
But we need to keep in mind what the purpose of this is, and not forget where we came from.
Yeah. And I
like that you're a hunting company.
Well, and that's all we're focused on. And the reason the company exists is because the industry, for me, started going towards the target speed, basically building stuff for shells, not for the mountain. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a frustration of, man, how is it possible that I can't buy the broadhead we make when that geometry's been around forever?
Right.
Since the beginning of man, you know? So how is it possible that I can't buy that head? And once I started digging into the weeds of trying to manufacture it, I understood why, because it's harder to produce.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, but what I was going to say about Levi is that I've heard him say this on several podcasts, and he, has told me this in person. His competition arrows, he gets within 5 or 6 grains of the batch. And so, and there's people that are obsessing trying to get their hunting arrows within 1 grain. And I understand that it's a sum of all parts. If you're, making a 1% improvement here. Well, if you do that 20 times, it's a 20% gain. Mm-hmm.
He's also got a 32-inch draw length. Like, the guy can get away with some stuff that I can't.
He can get away with anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that have those long draw lengths that get away with it.
I think within competition that draw length should be treated the same way that
weight class in boxing
and wrestling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It's not a fair fight.
It's not.
Yeah.
No. But you look at Dan McCarthy. He's the only guy that consistently beats him, and he's got just a normal draw length. But it's hard.
Good job, Dan.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, us normal humans are we're behind you, buddy. But yeah, so you're talking about, a 5 or 6 grain variance in his competition arrows. Mm-hmm. And I said, gosh, why would you do that? And he goes, well, Brian, the bow's not repeatable within 1 or 2 feet per second.
Yeah.
Which is 5 or 6 grains. It crosses. I'm like, oh, well, that makes tons of sense. So it's not a perfect machine that you're shooting.
So you have the scary situation where you have compounding errors, but you have the more probable situation, which is competing errors where they're balancing.
That's right.
Right. And I talk about this with rifles all the time. You know, say somebody's got a gun that's shooting an 1.25 inches at the range. And they're like, man, this thing sucks. Like, I got to have it be at least 1 inch. I'm like, look, dude, in the field, there's a 50% chance that's going to help you. Like, it's all right.
Yeah.
We can get in lungs with this.
Yeah.
Let's work on some stuff that actually matters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So we've been moving forward. I do want to ask you real quick though, on vanes.
Yeah.
Near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I switched to 4 years ago, and I don't see a reason to ever go back to 3.
Yep.
Because it removed a step from the process. I don't have to look at my arrow when I put it on the string.
Yep.
And if there's one less thing I can do, I always want to find that thing.
Yep.
I also found that my arrow got quieter, and that if I went with a 3-degree offset with 4 vanes on the back of my arrow, that when I started inducing errors into my setup, like intentionally putting torque into my bow and things
torque.
Like that, that it was helping overcome that. When I looked at your counter and a bunch of these arrows that are getting ready to ship, I noticed that most of them have 4 vanes on. Some of them have 3. What's your advice to shooters?
So, well, yeah. So 4 fletch is not quieter. It is louder.
It's louder.
It is louder.
Okay.
Yep, it is. So, but I've been a 4 fletch shooter for almost 30 years because I was a traditional shooter back then. Still am, but solely, a traditional shooter back then. And I killed a lot of stuff on a second shot. I would fire for effect and then kill it on the second arrow, But with the traditional bows, they're so quiet. A lot of times animals just stood there.
Right. And your arrow flight's much quieter as well.
Oh, gosh, yeah, night and day. So it's moving slow.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, knocking that second arrow and keeping your eye on the animal and not having to look down to put your cock vane out, that's why I started shooting 4 fletch. And then as we talked earlier, I started Western hunting in 1991, which is a long time ago, before rangefinders, before the internet, all that jazz. And having to judge yardage on a giant animal in wide open country when you come from the South with little animals in tight country, it was tough. It was super tough. And so I missed under a lot. But I also could load a second arrow quickly if I had 4 fletch. So 4 fletch is strictly a function of exactly what you said. It's loading.
So is it louder because you have more surface for turbulence?
More surface area. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
But to finish I want to finish that as far as like you talking about inducing torque into your bow grip. So what a 4 fletch does is it recovers faster. It doesn't change the rotation rate, the spin rate. Once it hits that speed, it's the same as what a 3 is. But what'll happen is a 4 fletch will get to that max spin rate. It'll get there, say, within 15 yards to where 3 fletch may be 18 yards. It's not a huge difference. So as far as like performance goes, broadhead stability, so on and so forth, I've never felt like there's that big of an advantage because you could shoot 2 fletch. And if your bow is tuned properly and everything's tuned perfectly, you can get away with that. So, and that's something that we 100% should talk about. I think it's the most important thing is properly tuned because we have a very simple philosophy here. If your bare shafts with no fletchings on them hit in the same hole with your arrows with fletchings on them, that renders the fletchings irrelevant. So they're just along for the ride. And so So they're just there on standby. So when you put more fletchings on the front, i.e. a broadhead, and it starts trying to walk that arrow or change the path of that arrow, you've got 3 or 4 guys on the back that have more surface area than that broadhead does that can overpower it and correct and maintain your good flight. What most people have is they have 3 or 4 vanes on the back of their arrow trying to steer the entire arrow, trying to correct its poor flight. And then when you put a broadhead on the front of it, after you've already got your bow sighted in, and then if your broadheads are hitting 6, 8 inches here, there, yonder, you can't figure it out, and they blame the broadhead, which is horse crap. Mm-hmm. It's not the broadhead. Your bow is not tuned. You've just added steerage to the front, and it's bringing back to the surface your bad arrow flight.
Tuned bow and tuned shooter.
It's hard to tune the Indian. It's easy to tune the bow.
Right.
And so,
but you can take a perfectly tuned bow. Like if somebody sent you their bow and you had it perfect,
yes,
and then they're not shooting it right,
correct.
They can put the same dramas back into it,
correct.
But they can never shoot an untuned bow correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah,
and so, and that's what we see when we have people come here that are looking for help. Is either
help me,
yeah, help. Dakota and I'll take them upstairs and we'll tune their bow and we'll shoot bare shafts with their fletched arrows at 30 where they're touching. And then they'll get it and start shooting, and we immediately can see what they're doing. Mm-hmm. The arrow tells the tale. It tells you exactly what's going on.
Yeah,
and so
it can't lie.
It doesn't lie. Bare shafts don't lie. They are the ultimate truth teller. And so we can look what they're doing and go, okay, here's what you need to do with your grip. It's usually the grip.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Grip and face pressure.
Yeah.
Like if we could remove those things, bow's going to do a pretty good job.
It is. And the face pressure is 20%, grip's 80.
Yeah.
It's the grip.
Yeah.
And it's a repeatable grip. You know, that's the thing. And so
I'm still unhappy with bow companies for the way they're making grips, because that grip can feel the same to you and not be the same. And I think that they should work on that, make it a little easier for us.
They've been trying.
They're trying.
Yeah. They've gotten substantially smaller over the last 4 decades that I've been doing this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, look at the big wood-handled grips of Matthews bows from 20 years ago.
I loved them.
They were really comfortable in the hand. Yeah. And then you take
But you were always getting left torque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
No. Yeah. And
then you take a super thin profile, like on some of the Matthews and some of the primes and stuff like that today.
Yeah.
It's easier to shoot it right, but it's sure not as comfortable. It doesn't look as good.
No, but it definitely makes a difference. So I was super fortunate, James. I was able to work in a outdoor shop, bow shop. They had a really big bow section, and it was a small local outdoor shop back before the box stores ever existed. Mm-hmm. It was actually originally called Bass Pro Shop.
Okay.
And then they changed it to the Outhouse.
Okay.
And the people that started it were the same people that started and founded Bass, mm-hmm. BASS, Bass Angler Sportsman Society. And that was their family that started this shop. And so I was able to work there late 80s, early 90s in high school. And then I worked there through college and ran the bow shop. And so I was super lucky because I got to learn how to do all this stuff when everything sucked. Mm-hmm. The bows were so bad.
Yeah.
Like they were so bad, like steel cables and like no adjustability and really bad rests, really inconsistent arrows. So I got to learn to do all this when it was really hard. And now with these newer bows, if the guy can remotely shoot, it's a 10-minute process and it's lights out.
Yeah.
So we've come a long, long way for sure.
My first compound was at Jennings with wooden limbs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Had like the did it still have the recurve style or was it the arc style?
It was an arc style.
Yeah. Because they made one that had like the still recurve look. Mm-hmm. I had Golden Eagles.
Yep.
That were made up in your country.
Yep.
Yep. And they still had the recurve style. Mm-hmm. And then my first compound was a Browning Nomad.
Yeah.
Wooden riser, wooden limbs, cams about the size of a silver dollar. Mm-hmm. I shot it bare with just a rest, no sights.
Yeah.
That's how I hunted to first started.
Might as well.
Yeah. Well, back then, I couldn't afford sights. I was riding my bicycle to the Kmart up on the highway from my house and buying arrows one at a time.
Yeah.
And you didn't walk away from a lost arrow. You found it.
Yeah. I mean, some of the first sights I had were metal, that had
the paint on the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it would get bent all the time, and you'd like crank it back around to where you thought it ought to be.
Oh yeah. 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 I used to buy this certain sight and take those pins out, and then I had high vis 60-pound monofilament, and I actually tied in.
You're making your own fiber optic.
I did.
Yeah.
I tied in a vertical, and then I tied in the horizontal, and you could just slide the knots up and down.
Yeah.
And then once you got it sighted in, you could just tie set knots on both sides of it. And I used to make my own sight that way.
That's awesome.
I thought it was until I wiped out coming down a little slide in New Mexico and broke all the monofilaments on my. Well, I still had the set knots, so I kind of knew where I was.
Sure.
But I had to go back and like retie them.
So funny.
It was stupid, but But I mean, that's the way I kind of learned how to do all this stuff, and so now I kind of understand like what's important and what's not, and so I try to help guys not focus on some of these micro things and worry about more of the macro things like their grip. The right draw length, that kind of thing.
We talked about straightness and spine.
Yep.
Let's move on down towards that broadhead.
Okay. Yeah. So I shot a 2-blade for years. Mm-hmm. I shot a little bit of everything. Spent a lot of time with a compound with a Rocky Mountain Razorhead made by Barry Archery. They're not around anymore, I don't guess. But it was kind of the predecessor to the Thunderhead. And so when that came out, I started shooting that. Everybody I knew, everybody and their uncle shot muzzies. Mm-hmm. And we did a greenhide test at that shop like in 1991 with a muzzy in that trocar tip versus like a Thunderhead with just that cone tip or that pyramid tip. And it took so much pressure to pop that muzzy trocar tip through that hide. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
It was like 3x,
right.
Like trying to get it through hide. And so I was like, this is ridiculous. And for whatever reason, it always made sense to me that blade angle was incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And the muzzies would stick straight out. And then the Thunderheads were a lower profile. So slice instead of chop.
Yeah. So here we're talking about mechanical advantage, right?
Correct. That's exactly right.
So folks, if you're thinking about maybe like your kitchen knife and you've got that blade parallel to a piece of steak, and how much pressure without sawing do you have to push to get it to cut through? Now turn the knife so that it's point down, and how much pressure does it take to get through the steak?
Yeah, or draw the blade. Just the weight of the knife. Just draw it along the steak, and it'll slice into that.
Right.
And that's what you're trying to do, is have the blade slice. And so that's why blade angle is so important.
And that's mechanical advantage. And if we look at the contours of that chef's knife, they're going to start to look pretty similar to the contours on your broadhead.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, I shot those in the beginning. And then when I started moving over into the trad world, basically in your mind, you had to shoot a straight 2-blade and a single bevel head. That's what everybody shot back then. And so that's what I killed the lion's share of my animals with. Mm-hmm. All through the 90s, probably early 2000s, was the different straight 2-blades, mostly single bevel stuff. And then I realized the farce that the single bevel thing really is. Because it's so popular now, it's almost comical to me.
I'm ready for this because I like them.
Yeah, well, it's the biggest scam perpetuated in the broadhead market right now.
Okay, tell me why.
Okay, so number one,
I've had wonderful success with them.
They work.
Yeah,
they work. I'm not saying that they don't work.
Yeah,
but they're being
But if we're looking at getting better, I want to know why.
Well, they're being promoted as an advantage.
Okay.
Okay, so you tell me what the advantage of the single bevel is first, as you understand it.
As I understand it, one of the advantages is I have dissimilar air pressure on each side of the broadhead, so that the broadhead is going to be gyroscopically stabilizing in the same direction as the vanes, and that when I hit bone, it's creating some torque to break that bone and create a cavity for the rest of the arrow to follow through.
Okay. All right. So you're saying it creates rotation to split the bone.
Yes. I'm saying that it creates torque, a force that tends to cause rotation.
Okay. So when you split your firewood at home, is there anything on your axe that creates torque?
So this is interesting because I've gone down this rabbit hole too, and I found single bevel splitting mauls.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they work good. I've also found that if I have a normal splitting maul and I hit it at slightly an angle, as it corrects, it tends to split wood a little bit better.
So here's the thing. So go find one single bevel knife in your drawer.
I've got one.
Do you?
Yeah. For sushi.
For sushi.
Very common for sushi.
It is because you're trying to get that fine edge. Okay. But you're cutting the most supple, easy to cut, but you're cutting it fine, super thin. Yep. Okay. The problem is the reason that blades are not single bevel is because it's an unsupported edge. You can get it incredibly sharp, but it's not durable. So it doesn't have edge retention like a double bevel does, like a supported double bevel.
But every edge that's used in woodworking is a single bevel.
It is, but you're trying to pull up these fine flakes and little things like that. So
chainsaws, every saw blade,
So if you're answering your own question,
okay, good.
Okay, all right. So if you had a double bevel chainsaw chain, how in the world would you ever be able to sharpen it?
I wouldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the reason every machete you find in the jungles in third world countries everywhere is single bevels because people are sharpening them on rocks.
Yeah.
It's very easy to obtain an edge in a very rudimentary way.
Okay.
But it's not a durable edge. It's an unsupported edge, so it lays over. It doesn't hold its edge retention the way you want. Like you mentioned earlier, you're cutting through coarse hair, mud, dirt, hide, bone. The goal is to have that thing as sharp when it comes out the other side as it is when it goes in.
Absolutely.
And a single bevel is an inferior edge to a double bevel, okay? All right. So the second thing is I understand the concept that everybody talks about the rotation with the opposing bevels. If that percentage of bevel compared to the overall surface area of a broadhead blade actually created rotation, you'd have a plane with a fuselage that's 80% and wings that are 20. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
You have to have a bigger lever than that to create rotation. So anytime you ever see anybody shoot, like look at John Lusk's videos that he does, and he shoots all the broadheads into ballistic gel. And then he very quietly says, this percent rotation, this percent rotation. Most of the time, the percentage of rotation is no different on a single bevel or a double bevel. It's the continuation of the arrow rotation that's already in play. That's all it is. A single bevel broadhead is not going to rotate all the way around. It's not going to rotate enough of a percentage to even create rotation, okay? So that is a farce. It does not rotate. And you can look at every test he's done. The single bevels don't rotate any more than the double bevels. Okay.
And who is this guy again, just so people can go?
John Lusk. He does like thousands of broadhead tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people can go look at that on YouTube.
And other people have done this too.
Yeah.
So
cool.
But think about it. It's just physics.
I think about physics all day, every day.
Yeah. There's not enough surface area of that bevel to create rotation to move that entire mass. Think about it.
I think about it a lot. Okay. All right. So, keep going.
Yeah. And this was, listen, the reason they were single bevels is back when I was doing it and even before, most of these two blades were made in somebody's garage.
Right.
And some guy's grinding them on a grinder in his garage.
Yeah.
He didn't have sophisticated equipment to make a durable double bevel edge. And somebody looked at it and went, oh, look, opposing bevels. They're going to rotate. I promise you it's not. So my mom's been in aerospace for 45 years. I've got to talk to a lot of smart guys, way smarter than me. And they're like, no, like there's not, the ratios are, there's no way. If it does create rotation, maybe it's 1%.
Okay.
Not measurable. Again. All right. But here's the thing. Here is the kicker. It doesn't rotate. All right.
Okay.
So, but if it did, which is the big selling point for the single bevel, is the rotation. If it did, it is not an advantage. It is a disadvantage when putting arrows through animals.
Why?
Because for that arrow to rotate, it takes energy. Okay. What's the only thing it can tax energy from? The momentum of the moving arrow, because energy's not free.
Yep.
So it can't just spontaneously rotate on its own. It has to tax the momentum of the arrow. So it's therefore slowing the arrow down as it screws through. So back in the 80s and early 90s, there were several broadheads that came to market that were replaceable blade broadheads, but they had the blades offset like a boat propeller. Okay. Just for this reason.
I remember seeing some of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. They didn't last very long because they were slowing the arrow down. Think about a nail versus a screw and the external motor that it requires to turn that screw, and how slow it is to put a screw through a board versus driving a nail through. And putting an arrow through an animal is driving a nail. That's what you're trying to do. And so when you introduce rotation, it's a disadvantage, not an advantage, because you're robbing momentum to turn it.
So you're saying that one of these things has to be true. Either it's not rotating so that the selling point is false, or it is rotating, in which case that's a negative.
Correct.
Okay.
But fear not, single bevel guys. It doesn't rotate, so it's not a disadvantage. Okay. The only disadvantage that a single bevel has over a double bevel is that it does not retain its edge as well. It doesn't have the edge retention. So that is the only, and that's not a huge deterrent. Okay. But for me, it is. I want to have that thing hair popping sharp on the back side of it. So
what angle did you decide to sharpen your broadheads
20
at?
degrees.
20 degrees is what I like for knives too.
Me too. Our knives are the same way.
Yeah.
We don't make knives anymore. Sorry.
I played with every degree angle on so many different knives, and 20 is where I ended up with
durability, and
it's plenty sharp.
Yeah.
Like I can make something shaving sharp at 33 degrees.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some misunderstanding about what sharpness actually is, but I've just found that 20 degrees is the sharpest for the longest.
It is. To me, it's that blend. It's the happy medium, which it kind of harkens back to your question about how did we end up where we're at with our head. Is I wanted that shape. I wanted that geometry, but I didn't want it in a two blade, which you could find it in a two blade. And I used to shoot these heads out of Hungary that looked just like our heads. Until they, quote, improved them. And then I was like, dadgummit, stop improving stuff, you know? But it didn't have a bleeder. And to me, the bleeder is so, so important. And I've had guys that have a lot of experience with big game, and they're like, oh, I'll only do a two blade. The bleeder is it slows it down. Well, most bleeders do slow it down, because they're an afterthought and they stick straight out.
It's not going to speed it up.
Well, ours does.
Well, it's got more resistance. How is it going to speed it up?
It doesn't have more resistance.
But it's more surface area.
Well,
so
I'll explain that to you.
Help me understand, yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you where the revelation happened for me, okay? So I spent the first half of my life in the construction engineering world. And on the Gulf Coast, we built a lot of structures that were piling supported. Okay. And so in my mind, before I started doing this as a profession, I always thought that you would get larger diameter pilings So you'd have a larger butt section at the bottom, and then you do your soil test, and you'd drill down, and you'd find where it was hard, and then you would drive that piling down to where that flat diameter butt would sit on that hard surface, and that's what would hold the structure up. That's what I thought. And then once I got into the engineering of it and understood that it's the friction on the surface of the entire piling over the length, that's what holds it up. The bottom, the butt, has nothing to do with it. It's sidewall friction.
Right, because the moment arm is too big for that to even matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I understood why we were doing soil tests, so we would get the density of the soil and how it would grip the side of those pilings that, oh, by the way, look just like arrows.
Right.
The light went off and I went, oh, I've got to reduce sidewall friction. That's what's going to get arrows through animals.
Okay.
And so when you have a straight two blade, you're cutting this perfect slit, but you're leaving this surface that's going to be dragging against that sidewall of that arrow. When you have a forward position bleeder like ours, but also look at the angle of that thing.
Right. No, it still has mechanical advantage.
Still has mechanical advantage. Nobody else does that. They stick them in the back and they stick them straight out where they're an anchor.
Yeah.
So what this does is that this low profile bleeder opens up that path 4 ways instead of 2.
And they're not ventilated. Thank you so much.
I will never build a vented head. That's that's the easy button. But it opens up the path for not only the arrow, but the ferrule.
Right.
So there's never any resistance on that ferrule or the arrow as it goes through. And so that's why they're designed that way.
Okay. I'm with you now.
Yeah. And if you and we can do this, you can shoot our head with no bleeder into a layered cardboard, like a penetration test. And the bleeder actually out penetrates.
Yeah.
And then you can look at any test that's ever been done independently on YouTube that we've been involved in, and we've blown away everybody on the penetration.
Good.
Because of that forward-facing low-profile bleeder eliminating sidewall friction. Most people are not thinking the way I'm thinking about this. They're thinking the traditional way that the two-blade has less resistance, less drag, and therefore it's going to penetrate better. The two-blade design does great. But the two-blade design, that's what splits bone. It's not like when people talk about a chisel tip and a bone-breaking tip, that's not what you want. You want that two-blade going into that bone and providing that fission. I mean, the fissure there, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the split.
The split.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so, and a single bevel does that, but it just does it as a two-blade. It's not doing anything different. So that's how we came to all of this. I don't want this to sound arrogant at all, but we're not guessing at this anymore. I mean, I
looked at the testing you're doing. It's super significant.
Well, and I've had the opportunity to put a lot of arrows through animals for 40 years.
Right.
Being so lucky to grow up where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were years to where, just in Alabama alone, I would have to shoot 30 to 50 does a year just for our management program. And then I've had the benefit of having hogs in my life.
Yeah.
Which is the single greatest test medium for broadheads and arrows on earth.
Yeah. It's a fantastic proving ground.
There's nothing tougher.
Yeah.
From their hair to their hide to their shields to their bone density to their muscle mass, they just suck in all categories.
Yeah.
And they're just hard to kill. And so being able to do that and seeing what arrows and broadheads do and how they perform, that's how all this came about. And the industry kept going away from it because they kept having to come out with something new every year. And to stock shelves and new sales. There's no question about it. But tried and true works.
Yep.
And that's what we're about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We skipped over one thing that I want to talk about. We have this critical interface between the string and the arrow that occurs at the nock.
Yes.
And we talked about that. You've got the nock collar there that's helping with alignment and several other things. We move on down the arrow. Now the interface between the broadhead and the shaft is something worth considering, because you're going about that differently than everyone else.
Yes. So we have our centric system, which I patented, which patents are only as good as you can afford to enforce them. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to accomplish a couple of different things there. Number one, I wanted to be able to increase the durability of the end of the arrow. The two ends are where arrows fail. Mm-hmm. They very rarely fail in the middle, at least during the shot and on impact and all that. So I wanted to be able to increase the durability there, which is what we accomplished by having that integrated insert collar system. Mm-hmm. We do ours different. We have it threaded, so we have a mechanical bond and a chemical bond. The other thing that we do is we have it to where it indexes on the inside of the shaft, like I showed you, and then the collar floats, and then that void is filled with epoxy. And that keeps the concentricity perfect, so you don't have any run out.
So you've got metal on the inside, carbon, and then you've got this chemical bond between all of that.
And the collar on the outside.
And then the collar on the outside with more metal, which is titanium.
Yep. So
this most dangerous and weakest point, you've really reinforced and laminated with some tough materials. I will say, just to make the point very clear for everyone, you want the weight of that arrow behind that broadhead all the way through. So 100%. If you get a breakage right there, you've just lost all of the potential energy that was, well, it's kinetic energy at that point that was stored in that arrow. You no longer have that. And now you've reduced this 500 to 525, 530 grain system down to a 125, 150 degree system.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't have the ass that it needs to keep going.
No. And put a tab on that, and we'll come right back to that. But I'll finish this on the component there. Back to my sidewall friction obsession.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing is that this shaft is 250. Mm-hmm. The face of that collar where it engages the head is 308. 250 thousandths in diameter.
Okay.
And then where the widest point is at the very front where the head engages the collar, the insert there, that's 308.
Okay. So we're going from 25 caliber to 30 caliber.
Yeah, but you're poking a 30 caliber hole.
Yep.
And then you're running a 25 caliber arrow behind it.
So that you can reduce
sidewall friction.
Nice.
Smaller peg through a bigger hole.
Yeah.
Pretty simple stuff.
Pretty simple.
Very simple.
Makes sense no matter how hard you think about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Complicated all you want.
Yeah.
But coming back to what you talked about, having all the energy focused behind the arrow, that's why arrow flight is so important. Arrow flight is where penetration comes from. It's 90% arrow flight and the 10% of all the other crap we've talked about today. If you don't have perfect arrow flight, you've lost the game before you started. Here's where the broadheads that are being sold now fail. Throw out the edges, throw out the steels, throw out the materials, throw out the durability, throw out the mechanisms, throw all that out. When those blades are sticking straight out, as soon as the left side or the right side engages a different density of material as it's going through an animal. So when that broadhead goes in and the left blade hits a rib and the right blade goes between a rib, that lever is going to kick that nock to the right or left.
Of course.
High or low.
Yep.
And you've just lost all your energy from the nock and all the arrow pushing that momentum through that head. You've lost it as soon as you've made contact because of blade angle. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so critical. If you look at everything we make, it's very slight, low blade angles. So it has very little resistance and very little impact on the path of that arrow where you're maintaining that energy through the head. Everything that's out there mechanical-wise, when they open, they stick straight out. And people are like, oh, mechanicals.
Gross. It's not even worth talking about.
No, but that's what's happening. But you can look at fixed blade heads.
Yeah.
That have the same thing. The ones that have concave shapes, that have the little fins at the back, they have these little wings that, number one, are chopping at the back, which are dulling. Number two, they're creating drag because it's chopping, not slicing. But it's also putting levers out there. So when you hit a rib, a bone, a shoulder, or a different density, it's going to change that angle of that arrow flight, and it's going to spin. And if you watch arrows go through in slow motion on hunting TV, and they're shooting these wide heads, watch as soon as the arrow hits, and you can see the nock violently goes left, right, high, low.
Yeah.
It's not that the mechanical opening is robbing that much energy to change the momentum of that and diminish the value there of the momentum. It's taking the energy and it's changing its focus, and it's just basically making it from a knockout punch to a glancing blow. And you're losing all that momentum just by changing the path of that arrow nock.
The Columbia Plateau arrowheads from my area that were used from, I think, about 3,000 years ago up until, the 1800s.
Yeah.
They were actually concave shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they had a really long point.
That's right.
And that's why it's almost impossible to find one that's intact because
they're broke.
Those points all broke off.
Yeah. But look how many.
But generally speaking, that is not the way arrowheads were carved throughout the world.
No. And look, and I mean, if they weren't a durable design, you wouldn't find them intact today.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, simple stuff, man. We're not geniuses here.
So look, if people feel like rather than, paying tariffs to get something imported, and they would rather support a family-owned business from Casper, Wyoming, and the things that you're saying make sense to them, how do they go about getting these broadheads or these arrow systems?
Day 6 Gear.
Yep. Day 6 Gear.
Yeah, that's it.
.com.
That's it, man.
Okay.
Yep. And if you call the number, I answer the phone.
Okay.
So.
And don't call on a Wednesday night because that's family night. When
family dinner.
When you and your employees and your wife are all in the kitchen over here enjoying a meal together.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah, man.
The only thing I don't love about that is that it's not currently Wednesday night.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, dude, I learned a lot. I mean, I think about this stuff nonstop. I test it constantly. I've been fortunate to bow hunt and shoot a bow for a long time. I do think that of all the things that I've done, like this is my 10,000 hour category. But man, I love learning more about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it too.
Yeah. And it's fun to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we do want every possible advantage that we can get.
Yeah.
It's the only ethical thing you can do for these animals is to give yourself every possible advantage to make sure that shot is as lethal as you can make it.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, sir, thank you so much for your time, folks.
You bet.
Day 6 Gear. Check it out. This is a cool shot. These guys are doing a good job. They're building a good broadhead. I think it's going to kill whatever they shoot at it with, as long as they're tuned and their bow is tuned and they make a good shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Cheers, sir. Thanks, you.
Buddy. Yep.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.